All right, hello, everybody. Hello. Everyone can hear me? Everyone's good? We are starting. It is 9:14. We were going to start at 9:15. This is the first official market open. Very happy that people are here. Everyone can hear? Okay, perfect. Microphone is working really well. Hello to the first official market open of this channel. This is the first market open I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to continue be doing this for the rest of my life. That is that is the goal here. We just reached 10,000 subscribers on the channel. Really appreciate everyone who subscribed. Big milestone. And now we're pushing up the ante. So over the past couple of months, obviously I've done a lot of Palantir content. Will be continuing to do Palantir content. But I'm trying to go for it. I'm trying to go for the meat amidst of the world, if you know what I'm saying. And to do that, we've got to diversify. We've got to push ourselves. We've got to have different boundaries, different challenges. And that's why we're here today. Before we get into the market open down into starting around 9:30, we've got a lot to talk about. Russia has completely nuked their currency. And it's kind of insane because Russia is getting so what you could call desperate right now for what's going on in the global crisis that they're starting with Ukraine, that they have started to create nuclear defense systems to be on high alert. What does that mean? That means that Russia's like, you know what? Let's start our nuclear deterrence programs. Let's just make sure that if a nuke gets launched at us, we can deter. And if we need to launch a nuke, everything is in place. Now, one thing that's important to understand about this is Russia's nuclear systems are not good. They have not been updated for a long time. They have the second most nukes in the world, around 6,000 warheads. But the problem is they're not really good. Like those systems are not updated. They're not strong. They haven't launched them in like decades. So and the United States intelligence just shows that their ability to actually launch a nuclear weapon and have it actually reach its target is likely not going to happen. So a lot of what's going on right now is pure like posturing by the Russians. It's pure, well, we think that things are going to be, potentially bad, so let's launch a nuclear weapon, but it shows that they have no strategic plan in action. As a result of having no strategic plan in action, that's when you get desperate. Now, the United States, thankfully, has not responded with aggression and started their own nuclear deterrence program or their own nuclear systems on what is called high alert in the nuclear industry, because that would send a message to Russia that, oh, if you're ready to launch, we're ready to launch. And the key thing about nuclear weapons is you don't need to do that. There's a concept called mutually assured destruction that I'm pretty sure you all know. If I punch you, you're going to punch me. So let's not punch each other. If I nuke you, you nuke me. This is why the entire concept of nuclear war usually makes zero sense, especially when you're talking about adversaries like Russia, United States, and China, because they all know that if they launch a nuclear weapon, the other one launches back. This is why North Korea, as insane as they are, will never launch a nuclear weapon, because the United States would literally decimate them in seconds if they even thought of launching a nuclear weapon. As a result, I'm not saying there's not going to be a nuclear war, because anything is possible. Vladimir Putin is 69 years old and kind of crazy. He wants to get Ukraine to get back to the USSR of old days in the Soviet Union. So anything could happen, but it's just very unlikely it's going to happen. The Russian ruble has been nuked. If anyone's nuking anything, it's Putin with his own currency. As a result of that currency being nuked, and we're about to look at charts in a second, it is really bad for Russians. I mean, say whatever you want about Biden, but he has diplomatically crushed Russia's entire banking system to the point where people cannot take even more than $20 from their bank account, because the entire Russian global banking infrastructure has been sanctioned by pretty much the rest of the world. I mean, even to the point where China has started freezing some of Russian bank assets, which has led to the collapse of the currency, because if people can't use the currency, if people aren't able to engage with the currency, if people aren't able to actually spend the currency, then the currency is not going to do that well. Additionally, people are on lines to get food. People are on lines to get resources, not just in Ukraine, but in Russia. And this is the thing that I think is so important to understand about a global economic crisis. It affects the country that's going into war when that country is being sanctioned by the rest of the world more than many other countries. Now, other countries will be affected. That country gets hit some of the worst. I'm looking a little bit at the chats, and then we're going to get into charts. Hey, Amit, looking all good looking for the first live stream. Awesome. I hope you guys like the shirt. This is the first shirt I'm wearing. Yeah, Sachin is here to support you, buddy. Appreciate that. Congrats on 10K. Aurelio, thank you. Paul says, don't say never. And that's true. You shouldn't say never, because anything could happen when it comes to nuclear weapons. But nonetheless, hopefully it doesn't happen. All right, let's switch a little bit to what we've got going here. I want to show you guys this. All right, here we are. So we're in Webull. Let's look at some charts real quick before we get into the opening bell. Here is the Russian ruble. This is the currency that we're at right here. Now, as you can see on this currency, this is what has been happening over the past couple days. We are at $98.46 right now. We got to a high of about $110. Now, you might be thinking this is kind of weird. How come when the currency goes up, it's a red stick? Well, this Russian ruble currency, and all currencies in general, because the US dollar is the reserve currency, is being compared to the US dollar. So when the Russian currency goes up, it's not becoming more valuable. It's becoming less valuable because you need more Russian rubles to make $1. Right? If you have more of this, you have less of that. So with Indian rupees, because I'm from India, $1 when I go back to India is like 70 rupees. And it's actually kind of crazy that $1 is 70 rupees, because I went to get a, what did I go to? I went to get a haircut. And the guy was like, I can give you a haircut, but I can also get your beard done. I can also give you a face massage. I can also give you a facial. He was like, he offered me like 17 different packages. I'm like, all right, bro, I'm Indian. I know that you guys like upsell me. Like, how much is it? He was like, oh, it's 500 rupees. I'm like, how much is that? It's like $7 or $8. I'm like, in America, I pay $25 just for my hair. And this guy's giving me $7 in Indian money. So India, it's a lot of money, but $7 for like my entire, I spent an hour in that place. I came out thinking like I'm a king. I'm like, if I live here, I'm literally a king. So it's not good for the currency to go up. So as you can see, the currency last night, while futures were getting decimated, we had a currency of 110 rubles, or 110.775 at the highest rate of rubles to $1. If you look at the British pound, on the other hand, well, the British pound is going down. Why is the British pound going down? Because for the British pound, $1 equals 1.33 British pounds, which is why the British pound is a more, not stronger currency than the dollar, but it's a little bit more of a valuable currency than the dollar, right? Because of how it's compared. Whereas the Indian rupee, the Russian ruble, they're less powerful compared to the US dollar. This is really bad for Russia. If you look at this chart, this was how many rubles a dollar was worth in December 28th, 2021. 73 rubles to a dollar. Almost the same as the Indian rupee, about 70 rupees to a dollar. Everything that starts with R for some reason is less than the dollar. And if we go to, when did the crisis start happening? So this was what, around January 12th, we started getting a little bit more signs of like, all right, Russia's playing around. They're saying they want to get back to the USSR. No one took them seriously. We got to high of $80. That wasn't good. Or 80 rubles. Got back to 74, back to normal levels. And then over the last couple of days, really last night, that's where we hit the inflection point, 110 rubles per $1. Now, why is this necessarily bad? Well, the reason this is bad is because if your currency is being deflated at such a high level, or inflated at such a high level, to the point where when people take the currency has no value, then it's not good for the entire economy. And this is the key thing that we have to understand when it comes to Russia. It's like, so what is Putin's endgame? What is he trying to do? And we'll talk about how this relates to stocks in a second. But what is this guy trying to do? Is this guy trying to genuinely get Ukraine back into the back into Russia, and start this whole new USSR type of like legacy or optimistic future for what Russia could be? And in the meantime, he's going to tank the economy of Russia. And this is where we have to get a little bit geopolitical and try to make sense of it. Why is this guy actually trying to do this? Do the means justify the ends in this respect from a utilitarian perspective? So utilitarianism is the branch of philosophy. See, on these morning shows, you get philosophy as well with stocks that says we need to care about the greater good for the greater amount of people. So when we take an action, that action is going to lead to some type of greater good that happens for the entire population. The entire nature of governmental philosophies is, can we be more utilitarian? I see Tom Nash just came in the chat. Russia will change the ruble name to Ruby Better Brain. I love it. Oh, one of my content predictions was the user chased by Putin. USSR chased by Putin. Yeah, and it's very interesting. So from a utilitarian perspective, it's like every government has to be utilitarian. There are many branches of philosophy. The main two are deontological and utilitarian. Deontological says the ends never justify the means. Meaning, if there is a terrorist, we should not kill that terrorist, even though we know that terrorist could kill other people, because it is metaphysically unethical to kill somebody, because it violates what Kantian philosophy calls the categorical imperative. What is the categorical imperative? The categorical imperative is a thought project, which is if you take an action and universalize it, meaning the entire world engages in that action, does that action make sense? So if we killed a terrorist, and we universalize the action of anyone just killing someone, it wouldn't make sense because the entire world would kill each other and it would violate human agency. So we shouldn't kill people. Utilitarianism, on the other hand, says, hey, if we kill that, in the name of Tanash, we kill that mother lover, then he won't kill other mother lovers, which is a good thing, right? The benefits of killing him outweigh the costs. So every government must be a utilitarian government. Now, why is that the case? Because there's hundreds of millions of people, sometimes billions of people, that a government is responsible for. So they have to look out for a utilitarian perspective. They have to make sure that when a society is strong, that people are being looked out for. Putin has not been a very good utilitarian over the past couple of days because his utilitarian vision is let's get Ukraine part of Russia and have this greater good economy for Russia, and we're like this most powerful entity in the world. The problem is the means by which you go to justify that end do not make sense. We are in a global economy. Technology moves at the speed of light. Institutions rely on other institutions. This is not the 1800s where you have your own section of the world and you can do whatever you want. Everything relies on everything else in the world. So if Putin says, hey, I'm going to go be a dictator and go take over another democratic, sovereign, independent nation, the rest of the world is not going to react well to that. And this gets into the Palantir conversation, which we can talk into a little bit, which is, are Western values going to win? And if Western values are not going to win, then that means dictatorial values will win. If he actually occupies Ukraine and he shows to the world his ability from a utilitarian perspective in his brain that I can take another country and make that country part of my country and my entire economy stays afloat, my people don't have their ruby inflated, and everything goes well, and the entire world does not react to that, then that means he sets an entire new precedent. That means the entire world has to react to that. And that's why I think it's very good that we're seeing this inflation happen in Russia, not for the Russian people, but for the macro level concern about what's actually going on in Russia. So it is extremely interesting to see what is happening. Sanctions have been put on Russia at some of the highest of levels. JP Morgan reports that the sanctions that have been put on Russia today, or in the past couple of days, have been higher than sanctions that they have ever seen in their entire lifetime. Why is JP Morgan saying this? Because obviously they have to make some analysis on sanctions, because sanctions are going to affect the entire global economy. This also means that, and we'll get into this a little bit more later when we talk about the SWIFT banking system, because you've probably heard about that a lot. But as a result of Russian sanctions being imposed, a lot of Russian assets and banks have been frozen. And because Russian assets and banks have been frozen, their inability to participate in the SWIFT banking system, and again, we'll talk about that in a nutshell, it's a global banking system that all banks use to communicate with each other. That means there's a potential for a lot of bad things to happen in other parts of the economy and other parts of the world. Because on one side, you have someone buying something, or you're taking a debt or credit for something. And on the other side, if that person's from Russia and they can't pay it back, literally because they were excluded from the entire system, then they don't have the ability to actually be able to pay back their debts, which can get really, really bad. All right, let's read some comments before we get into the market open. Chris Patel, Putin might be crashing the Russian market so his buddies can buy up everything cheap. You know, that's an interesting question. And it's like, I was tweeting about this just like for fun. Like there's this conspiracy that Putin wanted to get in Facebook at a better price. And like, maybe it's happening, but it's like, I don't know. To do all of this just to buy stocks at a cheaper price and then come back. And if he is, it's not the right way, I would think, to approach this situation. Let's look at some more comments. 10K, my guy. 96 manual. Thank you so much. They will change the currency to Lada. TC says that. I love that. Change the currency to Lada. It is rather imperialistic than the USSR. That's true. Amit dressed up for his first live stream. Yes, Amit streamed before. This is not his first stream. This was my first live stream, but not my first stream ever. Yay, free live stream with non-mixed info. Yes, I'm not trying to be political here. I'm not trying to have an agenda. I'm here to present things, try to give a little bit of my perspective, because it is my show, but really try to provide more so analysis at scale with what's going on. Time. All right, we are about to get into the market open in 2 minutes. Putin doesn't need more cash. He is richer than God. Yeah, that's one thing that's really, really important to explore. Tom, that's a really good comment. Putin, people don't know how much money Putin has because all of his money is reserved in some of this stuff, and like we're not able to really calculate it. But this guy is sitting on, outside of Saudi Arabia, the world's biggest country of oil, right? Literally sitting on it. 50% of the EU, you guys have probably heard this statistic, but it's a statistic that is really important to remember. 50% of the EU gets their oil from Russia, which is why like the sanctions that are being imposed, they're being imposed in somewhat of a way, but it's like how much can you sanction them when people at Russia or when people in the EU can't can't like have oil and gas for their heat, right? Like they need that stuff, and that's coming from Russia, which brings up a question of energy efficiency, which is super important. Dirk Diggler, first super chat for your first live stream, bros. Stay authentic. Love it. Thank you so much for the $5. Putin got enough money for himself, but cannot provide for his whole country. That's very true, and that's the problem with being a dictatorship. That's not the right thing to do, and that's why it's necessarily bad. All right, let's go to the market open. Let's change here. So this is, I just got a YouTube TV subscription, guys. So we are going to see how this works out. At 9:30, it is supposed to be opening the market. So in 30 seconds, we will see the opening bell of the market. And that will go. All right, here we go. Market is opening.
All right, welcome back. We got a minute before we get started with trading here. Opening bell going to be run by the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, who will join us shortly thereafter. What, I like to ask you when Carl's out, sort of our old thing goes back 20 years of you and me. Key to this market, Jim. Is there anything in particular?
Yeah, I think the key, but I think the key is Lockheed Martin. I'll tell you why.
Lockheed Martin?
Yes, because it is the one that is most, they have shoulder-fire missiles.
So notice he's talking about defense contractors. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. We're going to talk about defense contractors in a second, but it's important.
Okay. So everyone's all excited that therefore they're going to have big numbers. If you see Lockheed Martin.
1 second. I got to make sure you guys can see this. There you go. Yeah, so you guys should be able to see this now. Okay, here we go.
In reverse. And then you'll know that calm and peace should be at least included in your percentages.
Yeah.
It's the stock that's up the most, S&P stock up the most. Not the oils. And certainly not Schlumberger, which has exposure 5% EBITDA to Russia.
There it is. Market has been opened. A lot of red. A lot of red. Lot of red. We should be able to see that lot of red that is going on. Let's get into some of this other stuff. So here we go. We should be able to see this now. Let's go to our watch list. Here we go. All right, not that crazy if we're looking at it. Not that insane based upon what we're seeing. Watch list is not that absolutely crazy. Black screen, but yeah, the screen was black. I'll get that back in a second. I don't know why the screen was black on that. I'll go back to that in a second. I think it's because YouTube TV was a different application versus it, but you guys should be able to see Webull now. First technical difficulty of the stream. That's okay. Not too bad. We're going to be able to fix that. All right, how is this market looking? Not that insane. Well, let's go to Palantir, because I know we're all some Palantir bulls here. Let's see how Palantir is opening up. Really important to see the Palantir chart, and we'll go further. Oh, Palantir, what? We're past 12? We're up 5%? What? Oh, no, hold on. Now we're back to 1166, 1176. I think we were at 12 in pre-markets. I didn't even notice that. All right, here we go. We're at 1180, 1170. So first of all, Palantir is doing decently well. Up 2.83%. Now, this gets into the discussion again around defense contracting. So here's a quick question on Palantir, and then we'll go to the SPY, because I want to show a little bit of stuff that's happening on the SPY as well. Palantir, or Germany, just approved $100 billion of defense spending. This was done literally on Sunday. A lot of people have been theorizing that Germany, because they approved $100 billion of defense spending, is going to give some of that money to Palantir. And the link is not only because Palantir works in, not only because Palantir is a defense contractor, and Palantir obviously, should be able to get a decent amount of governmental spending because they're one of the most premier defense AI technologies that exists in the world. But there's two other reasons. Number one, Alex Karp just did an interview in Munich. And as a result of doing an interview in Munich, in that interview, and I'm going to put some videos up later analyzing that video, there's some really interesting stuff he talked about, primarily what it means to have a data protection first world, which Palantir is trying to pioneer in the GDPR sector of the country, of the entire planet, right? Europe, Germany, heavy on GDPR. So he's one of those people that when he goes to Germany, he's very happy to go to Germany, not only because he got his PhD in philosophy and in German, but because Germany is one of those places that actually believes in the philosophical mission of Palantir, which is GDPR. So that's one reason. Number two is they just expanded into Germany. They were only in France and the EU, and now they're in Germany. They're hiring about 1,000 new employees. I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe 5% of them are going to be allocated to Germany for that location. So that could be a really big sign for Palantir in order to be able to actually get that money. Tom Nash, defense and cybersecurity, Palantir. Yeah, Cyrom says Amit go dark mode. I am going to go dark mode. I don't know why it's in light mode, but I'll change it for dark mode for later. All right, I want to show the SPY. So let's see how the SPY is doing. Futures were horrible last night. The SPY got down to 426. It was not necessarily good. Let's look at the range. Let's look at the 1 day. All right, let's look at, what is it, 1 month. So as you can see, the SPY last night got pretty bad in futures, and now we're making a little bit of a recovery. So on February 24th, this is when we got to the lowest of the SPY. We got at 416, right? This is when we got into a correction territory, down 10%, but not bear market. Bear market is more so 20-25%. So we're not necessarily there yet. But now we're recovering back to 432. The question in the SPY and one of these major indexes to analyze is Russia or the market going to sell this thing off? RM says wait 30 minutes after the open. Well, we will see 30 minutes after the open as well. Let's look at what I want to show is the maximum of the S&P 500. This is something really important that I wanted to see. Okay, so the Crimea situation that happened, okay, everyone's asking for dark mode. Hold on, let's make sure we can get to dark mode. Settings. Oh, here we go. This is pretty easy. Dark. There we go. You guys are so right. This looks so much better. Oh my god. This, like, the white mode did not look. This is beautiful. Oh wow. You know why dark mode makes sense? Because you got to see the green and red candles. And if it's all white, how are you supposed to see the green and red candles? Okay, this is perfect. This is why I love the community. We're all collaborative. You guys are helping me out here. All right, let's look at the S&P 500, right? So here we have October 2013. We got to around 175, 174. Okay, October 2013. The S&P 500 was at $1,740. Now, the Crimea situation, where Russia literally went into a part of Ukraine, annexed that mother lover, took part of Crimea, and said, hey, you're part of us now, happened from January to March of 2014. Okay, so in October we're 174. January to March we are at we are in the Crimea situation. Let's go to January and March. So here we go, going slowly up. Oh, sorry, we got to go a little bit down. So we're in October 2013. Up. We're in January 31st, 2014. This is when we see the first sell-off, and it's nothing. It's at 177, barely anything. February 28th, 2014, we're a little bit higher. March, by April, May, when this whole situation is resolved, we are 25 points higher than we were like 3 months ago when the Crimea situation was happening. The translation is the market did not sell off the Crimea situation. It was not sold off. And so I was trying to analyze, and I'm trying to do a lot more research on this and like go into more depth of like, why didn't this happen? There was literally a dictatorship invading a sovereign independent country and putting out tons of propaganda, and then they annexed a portion of Crimea and they took it under their control. We saw the collapse of a democracy in our faces in 2014 in a world when you shouldn't be seeing this stuff. But we saw this stuff happen, and the market did not react to it. And then so like let's fast forward to what we have right now, right? And this is why I kind of think it's interesting to see how the market's reacting to it. So the market, where are we at? We are at 2022. Let's go to 2022. So the market, we closed 2021 up 27% year over year on the S&P 500 at $400 around $59 something like, or sorry, it was like 470 something around that range. Now. Yeah, around 475, right? December 31st, 2021. Now, we are going down, so 2 months later, we're at 433. The drop from 470 to 433 is worse than it was in the Crimea situation in 2014. I mean, there literally wasn't a drop. It just kept going up, maybe like less than 1% of a drop. But we've had inflation rates. We've had the Fed minutes. We've had a hawkish Fed. We've also had growth stocks get hammered because of the idea that interest rates are going to go up, and the market's starting to price that in. So this red candle that we see from the S&P 500, it doesn't take a genius at charts to be able to understand why this is happening over the past couple months. The question is, does this go deeper because of the Russia situation? And I'm skeptical of this. When I did the live stream a while back with Tom a couple days ago when we were first analyzing what happened on the Russia stream, futures were getting decimated. This was the first night that Russia decided to go into Kyiv, or like thought they were going to go into Kyiv and like started doing all the strategic planning, and the world started really talking about it. And Dows were horrible. You wake up the next morning, Palantir goes to 998 pre-market, and then it jumps to like 1130, and the S&P finishes well. There's a major rally happening, like almost like a decent reversal in a world in which you don't expect that rally to happen at all, because futures are down. Last night, futures were getting decimated. S&P at 427, now S&P at 430, 433. The question becomes, do we think that's going to happen long term? Do we think the market is actually not going to sell off this event? And in my opinion, I kind of don't think they're going to sell it off, because I kind of think they're baking in a couple of major things. Number one, they're baking in the fact that the entire world is sanctioning off Russia. Does that have economic effects? Yes. Is that bad for the broader markets and liquidities and equities and commodities and oil? Obviously, yes. But just because that's happening doesn't mean that we sell off the market to the point where we go down into 20, 30% bear market recession category. Because outside of that one isolated geopolitical event, nothing has necessarily changed in the overall story of the economy. This is kind of why my thesis on Palantir is intact. Nothing has changed about Palantir. There's just been a world in which analysts don't like it that much, and they go on CNBC and they complain about their SPAC revenue. But nothing has fundamentally changed. So, and when I was reading a statistic a while back, that since 1980, global markets have only been affected about 3.56% when a major event has happened, whether you're talking terrorism, 9/11, etc. It goes down, it gets hit, but if you average up all the days after a bad event happens, or like the week after, stocks rebound pretty easily. I mean, because, and here's the fundamental question, where else are you going to put your money? Right? Amid camera frozen. You guys can hear me. All right, we're going to fix this situation. Give me 1 second. We'll fix this situation right now. Little technical difficulties. That's okay. First stream. You got to expect some of that stuff. All right, here we go. We switched the webcam. Boom. Switch the webcam. That will be fixed in the future, guys. First stream. You guys should be able to see me now. But yes, that will be fixed in the future. That stuff won't happen. Back online. Back online. Sound is great. Okay. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Very good, very good. All right. So what I was saying is that, yeah, Russian currencies are going, but because of that, the question is, are we going to get a market sell-off? And as of now, I just don't necessarily think there is going to be a market sell-off. Here we go. Chris says, yo, just use StreamYard or Melon. Bro, the OBS thing has been working well. So it's like, I think it's my camera. I don't know, but we'll see what we do from there. Live streaming from OBS has problem. Yeah, you're right. All right. Well, we know that for tomorrow. We'll fix that up. Okay. So couple of things I want to get into, but let's look at some comments and then we'll keep going from there. My overall thesis on that is, like, I think the market is not going to sell this off at the level we think it is going to be. I do think it's going to be an isolated event, but that doesn't mean that other things can't happen, and we definitely have to watch out for some of those things that may happen. That was a great frozen pose, though. I hope someone screenshotted that. You guys can tweet that at me. By the way, Twitter at Amid is Investing. You follow the markets and the horrors of the market every day. A lot of memes, a lot of GIFs. Twitter has great GIFs. We post a lot of GIFs to make sure that we can actually deal with the market. All right, let's do some other stuff now. There's a couple of articles I wanted to get into. Well, first of all, let's go through a Bill Ackman thread, guys. This is going to be pretty interesting. At least I think it's going to be pretty interesting. Bill Ackman said some interesting things, and it's really important we talk about this. So let's make sure I want to make sure you guys can see everything before I actually start talking. Chris says, meet Kevin, use a StreamYard. Fine, Chris. If Kevin does it, then I'll do it. All right. Here we go. Here is the Bill Ackman thread that is so... Now, let's talk about Bill Ackman real quick before we get into this. Bill Ackman is notorious for being able to say things and get things done as a result of him saying things. And in 2020, March 2020, he went live on CNBC. He said, hey, President Trump, close down everything. This virus is going to kill people. And as a result of it going to kill people, we've got to close down stuff. He said, hey, Trump, I'm going to lose some stuff, okay? I am long a hotel stock. I think it was Long Hilton. I will get hurt by this, President Trump. This is not a good thing, but I care about the safety of American people, so don't do this. Like, you got to close down everything. Little did we know, he had a $27 million short on the market that turned into $2 billion as a result of like 13 days, or not even less than that, maybe like 4 or 5 days when the market tanked March 20th, 2020, and then it had this massive up rally since then. He exited his short positions and then went long a bunch of stocks. A couple of weeks ago, or in October, he was calling for more and more hawkish stuff from the Fed, more and more interest rates. The market crashes, and then he goes long on Netflix. Now, I don't know if he was necessarily shorting the market, he made a profit there, but he basically got what he wanted in terms of getting things to get really bad and then created a more long position. Here is what he's talking about now. So let's read this thread and then let's unpack it. All right. POTUS, is there a, and by the way, for those who don't know POTUS, it is President of the United States. I did not know that for a long time. And I was like, what the hell is a POTUS? Is that a penis? Like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, it's POTUS. Okay. Is there a point at which we say it is un-American to sit back and watch this transpire? We are fighting an economic war with Russia. We are supplying weapons and intelligence with our allies, and the Ukrainians are putting up an incredible fight. So he's starting this off by saying, hey guys, what's going on in Russia? How are we dealing with this? Russia has shown itself to be weak and lacking morale. Their air force can't achieve air superiority. Putin is rallying the nuclear saber as he gets more desperate. What if? Do we wait for him to kill millions before we intervene? What precedent are we continuing to set by allowing this to play out? None of us wants to put American lives at risk, obviously. And yes, it is easy for me to say with no children in the military. Oh, it's very easy for you to say that. But our lives are already at risk if Putin gets in the way. The U.S. Navy SEALs and Americans in uniform, I know, would want to be there to stop this madness. The defense of Ukraine is just war. It is not about oil or money. It is about right and wrong, and those are the wars that we should fight. And if we take long-term view and punish madmen for their actions, we can deter their larger ambitions. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second before we continue onto the thread. First, put it in your comments. What do you guys think is going on with, I was going to say Bill Nash, with Bill Ackman and why he's doing this? Bill Ackman is basically calling on the United States to say, let's go to war with Russia. It is that simple. Or he is saying, let's put boots on the ground and go to war. Now, he's trying to clarify saying, look, I'm not saying let's put boots on the ground, but I don't know how else to read this. You're saying, how long are we going to wait and watch this transpire? We are fighting an economic war with Russia in terms of sanctions, but we are not doing enough when it comes to actually start hurting people. That's why he says, I know it's easy for me to say this without kids in the military. So what he's implying is that people who have kids in the military would be upset by my comments. Why? Because I'm basically asking those kids in the military to go out and protect their nation, which means boots on the ground, which means killing people in violence. Like, it's just that simple. So I don't really think he can get away from this. Let's go a little bit more further from here. We need to start thinking about intervening militarily. Had we set up a show of force at the beginning of the war that we were prepared to execute on, we might have deterred Putin. We let Crimea, Georgia, and more happen, which got here. Isn't it time we set a real red line? Ackman is right. Bill Nash is my dad. So here's the real thing that's happening. Now, Ackman has a point, right? He has a point. He's saying, look, we let Crimea happen. We let Georgia happen. This was the annexation of Crimea in 2014 that we just talked about. That didn't affect the market, right? The market was like, all right, we're not going to sell it off. Because we let it happen 8 years ago, could that have set the precedent for Putin to now do this? And this, if you've been around from the stream since the very beginning, this is how it connects to the whole utilitarian philosophy. In utilitarianism, you have to do something for the greater good for the greater amount of people. So in a world in which 2014, in which we let Crimea happen, literally, I was watching the videos from 2014 just to go do some research on what Obama was talking about, and Obama was making calls to Putin like, hey, bro, don't do this. And Putin was like, got you. And then he went and did it, right? Because that's what he did, right? And Obama was like, sanctions. And Putin was like, but oil though. And then Obama was like, well, I need to look tough. And he was like, well, I got the oil, so you can look however tough you want, but nothing's going to change. As a result, Crimea gets annexed. Ackman's argument from a utilitarian perspective is if we put boots on the ground, if we have real military force, if we have true sentiments of deterrence, maybe this doesn't happen. Maybe this whole Ukraine situation in Kyiv doesn't actually happen right now. The question is he correct? Is boots on the ground actually going to be able to stop this? And my thought is you never put boots on the ground until you absolutely have to. And Afghanistan and after 9/11, we didn't have to do that. We could have hurt the Middle East in a lot more different ways. We didn't necessarily have to do that and get into an entire war. I think any precedent in their right mind, even if Trump was in office, there is no way in hell you're putting boots on the ground because that's starting a world war. Or that's just, if it's not a world war, it's a pretty bad war. So he has a utilitarian case to make saying we have to show a precedent. But when you're talking about real people dying, I'm not sure if the case necessarily makes that much sense anymore, particularly given what happens in a war. He then continues, and let's finish this up, allowing Syria to cross that line and doing nothing was one of the worst moments in our country's history. Here we have an opportunity to set a real red line and establish future generations what it means and what America stands for. That's a good point. We have a chance to show what America stands for. The question is, do we do it diplomatically or do we go bomb and kill people and have civilian casualties as a result of that? I would tend to be on the side of do it diplomatically, because if we can hurt Russia and tank their economy, which is happening right now, their ruble is not doing well, it's becoming a rupee, then that's a way better way than having boots on the ground. Like, I just don't see how boots on the ground is the best. And if he crosses it and we have to do what we have to do, we can't sit back and allow hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and perhaps millions to die. I feel like that's a little bit of a straw man argument, because that's not happening right now. He's assuming these people are going to die. We don't even know if all those people are going to die, given the sanctions that we put, the fact that the Russian Air Force is looking a little bit weak. So I don't know what he's necessarily saying here. I don't want to live in that world and you don't either. POTUS, it's in your hands. He's basically saying there's blood on your hands, Biden, if you don't fix this. Now, after he tweeted this, then we get a clarification from him. Some have missed what I'm saying. I am not advocating U.S. boots on the ground. Putin has threatened the nuclear option. We need to set a red line on the use of nuclear weapons to deter their use. If the unthinkable happens, I see no alternative to entering the war. It is better than for the red line to be known by Putin now than later. In the meantime, we should use every economic lever we have. So he's going down to the nuclear argument there. And I'm not necessarily sure if that's the best argument to go for, because as we talked about in the beginning of the stream, I don't think nuclear war is happening. Now, never say never, but if Putin launches a nuke, we launch a nuke. The world goes kaboom. Like, it's so irrational to the point where that's why it's, never happened. And ultimately that's the question, right? It's like if Ackman's argument is like the nuclear option is the major red line we can't cross, that's why we have to have boots on the ground. That's how he's justifying it. Now, the reason I bring this up is because Ackman is notoriously famous. Notoriously famous doesn't make sense. He is notorious for having bets on the market before he tweets. I mean, this guy barely tweets. Like in October, he tweeted after like 4 months saying like raise interest rates to 18,000% or whatever, and then he goes away. Now he comes back to Twitter and he's like, hey, think we need some boots on the ground. Think we need some military action. Think we need to get things in order. And it's like, well, what stocks are you long and short right now? Because if you're long Lockheed Martin, if you're short some of the high growth tech stocks that are going to get hurt with it, this is why disclosures are so important. Because if you're advocating for people to go and die, literally die, and we don't know that you are long the companies that are going to make the weapons for them to go and potentially get killed by, or used to be able to kill other people, then that's just like, there's more important things in life than money at that point, right? So it's like that's one of the things I definitely wanted to cover, because that is not necessarily the best thing for what's going on in the market. All right, let's look at some comments and then we'll get into a couple of other things. Tom Nash, Moore will sue if we don't stop him now while we can. Yeah, the question is, do we do it militarily or do we do it in a different way? But if we don't stop him now, they will be bad. Chris Patel, there's a saying, never interfere with an enemy while he's in the process of destroying himself. I agree with that heavily. Right now, Putin is destroying himself. The Russian economy looks horrible. If you looked at some pictures in McDonald's, I saw a video last night, people are literally, there's like 13, 14, or like 40, 50 people in a McDonald's trying to get food because everyone is crowded for food and everyone's crowded for trying to be able to get resources. Watch me pop. We just pulled out of the Middle East. We are not about to send our guys back to die again in another pointless war. I agree. Another thing to think about this politically is Biden and his agenda. There is no way he's getting elected if we go into a war. But there's also the chance, I'm not saying he's going to go into war, but there's also a chance in general that he is keen to the idea of thinking of a war. Because if you're in a wartime presidency, the entire country rallies around you. It's pretty much the only reason I believe Bush got reelected in 2004. Which is because in 2001, right, he declared America against the world. Well, what does that do? You get really patriotic. You're like, yeah, America, we're all going to come together. They bombed us. We're going to all come together and go back against them. You don't want an administration change 2 years later when you're in the middle of setting up the foundation for your country to defend itself, quote unquote, defend itself against the Middle East, right? Or against an adversary. So you're likely going to get reelected. Wartime presidencies always do. This is why Trump was using the term "I'm a wartime president" a lot during the COVID era, because he was like, COVID is a war. And I mean, he was right about that. But that rhetoric wasn't necessarily enough to get him elected. But he was trying to impose the image on people, like saying, look, this is a war against a disease that's affecting the entire country. We have to all come together to be able to stop it. The problem is the country was so politically divided by the end of 2020 that that kind of just never worked out. If USA attacks Russia, we will start World War III. I agree, Commando Master. We definitely shouldn't do this. Chris Patel, thank you for your service. He did serve 68W. Thank you for your service, Chris Patel. He was stationed in Heidelberg, so everyone should definitely thank Chris Patel for his service. I mean, I'm getting more sympathetic to people. I see some people on Twitter talking. Like, when you get older, you start to realize people who give up their life, people who actually are putting their life on the line to protect something greater than themselves, Like, my goal in life is to be an entrepreneur, start a company. I want to make billions of dollars, right? I have really high ambitions. None of my ambitions are higher than someone whose name we don't know that goes on a enemy's land and that has to murder people and potentially be murdered and never come back home to their family because they were protecting the freedoms of the greatest democracy in the world. So it's like that's when it really puts stuff in perspective. Marco Rodriguez says Palantir is a pump it up. Yo, Marco, I don't want to call you out, but you've been leaving comments on all of my videos saying Palantir is bad. I just don't get why you keep watching them. Like, you're just only helping the algorithm for me. If you really think Palantir is a pump and dump, maybe just don't watch the videos anymore. You don't have to watch them. It's okay. All right. Steven says, last couple comments. Short-term pain, long-term game, embargo their oil. The West needs to have all Western companies pull out of Russia ASAP. People suffer the only way Putin gets ousted. Look, I really agree with that statement. If we are able to actually get rid of our dependence on oil and supply chains from Russia, which is not easy to do because Russia supplies a lot of raw materials and a lot of commodities for the world, then we would be in a much better situation. Because at that point, you have a North Korea situation. North Korea has a dictatorship. People think it's 1970 in North Korea, but the reason they think it's 1970 in North Korea is because they don't have a strong economic foundation, right? And because they don't have a strong economic foundation, the rest of the world doesn't care about them. Russia is basically North Korea, not as bad as like the dictatorship and the freedom of speech stuff, but from a like governmental bureaucracy perspective, they are essentially like a dictatorship in that respect. But they have economic ability. They have oil. They have the ability to export commodities. And as soon as you have money and power and influence, the rest of the world must respect you. Same thing with China. Like 80% of our imports and our supply chains are in China. So if China goes and invades Taiwan, my question is like, are American companies actually going to get rid of their resources in China? Because it doesn't seem that likely, because China controls the entire fabric of the United States federal government and the United States economy. Basically the government, because the economy is the government, and if all of our supply chains are in China, we saw what happened in COVID when all those supply chains went away. Like, it's not good, right? Things get very bad. Tom Nash, Putin is not bound by public opinion or hardship. He honestly doesn't give an F. Pushing on that will be useless. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. The question is if Putin is ultimately going to be able to do whatever he wants to be able to do. Marco, you said, man, I feel attacked now. I'm not trying to attack you, Marco. I'm just saying you hate. Oh, this is a different Marco. We have two Marcos in the chat. The good Marco, you're good. Arun says Marco bought Palantir at $40. Bro, I'm so happy I didn't buy Palantir at $40 because... to be honest, I started making Palantir content when it was at $21. If I started going as aggressive, think about this from a just straight like content perspective. If I started going as aggressive as I am going on Palantir, and from a content perspective, when it was at $45 in like January 2021, that means it would have been a year now, and all of my content would have been made as the stock price just plummets and plummets and plummets. It would have kind of sucked. I'm happy I didn't know too much about it back then. Now, granted, it might be until January 2023. For some reason, until we get the stock price to get to a decent level. And I'm going to make a lot of videos till then, but hopefully it'll be on the upside versus the downside. And I feel like I can't blame myself in November to start making them and then for it to crash, because the whole market crashed. So I get a pass on that, right? The entire market crashed at that point. Tom Nash's Palantir is a dumping pup. Honestly, you're right. A Chang, yo, admit first live stream. Let's go. First live stream. Yes. Let's go. Okay. I want to look at a couple of articles real quick that I wanted to bring up, and then we'll talk from there. Okay, here is the Swift banking thing. So let's talk about Swift real quick, because I know a lot of people are probably confused, but I'm confused about that, and then we'll keep going further. So first, let's make sure this works. Let's switch the screen, and let's make sure that everyone can see this. Yes, everyone should be able to see this. Perfect. Okay, so Chris Patel says, imagine Marco Rubio as a plantard. Guys, I've heard that people don't like the term plantard. I heard that's why imagine if Palantir called their people plantards. Because I think it's like a play off the R word, right? Like, so that's, it's interesting. But every Discord I'm in, they use that word. But Palantir used the word Palatarian. If they use the word plantard, I think there would be some HR problems. All right, Swift. So let's talk about what is Swift. Because when I heard the word Swift, I thought they were talking about cleaning the bathroom. Okay, because when my mom tells me to go get the Swiffer, that's what I was thinking. So I'm like, what exactly is this Swift now? They always have these weird esoteric acronyms that describe things, like NATO. It's like can we just make an easier name? Like why do we gotta call it NATO? Swift. Let's talk about what this is. The Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, that is an absurd name for no reason, but nonetheless, is a Belgian cooperative society providing services related to the execution of financial transactions and payments between banks worldwide. Its principal function is to serve as the main messaging network through which international payments are initiated. I think that's the only sentence you really need to know to understand what SWIFT really does. The main messaging network, meaning banks, institutions, governmental organizations that work with commodities and derivatives, they all communicate through this banking situation. I'm sorry I keep looking to the left. I need to be looking to this webcam because I switched webcam, so I'm going to make sure to look at this webcam right here. Okay, it also sells software and services to financial institutions, mostly for its use of proprietary SwiftNet, which is primarily known as Swift codes. So the Swift messaging network is a component of global payment systems. As a result of these global payment systems, if Russia is excluded from Swift, well, that's not good for Russia. So here, let's go to the Bloomberg article. The West cuts some Russian banks from SWIFT. Not all of them, but some of these Russian banks. Banks are already facing sanctions that will be hit. Others may follow. The central bank move previously applied only to nations like Iran. So now, before we get into it, why is Iran one of the institutions that was essentially hurt by the SWIFT banking system? Because Iran has nuclear weapons, and no one in the world wants Iran to use those nuclear weapons. So as a result of negotiations, due diligence with Iran, or sort of diplomatic ties with Iran, we were like, let's cut them off from the SWIFT banking system. For Russia to be compared in the same light of Iran is insane, given how much more economic influence Russia actually has on the entirety of the world. Okay, let's get through this article. Western nations agreed to unleash new sanctions to further isolate Russia's economy and financial system after initial penalties failed to persuade Putin to withdraw his forces. A decision to penalize Russia's central bank and exclude some Russian banks from the SWIFT messaging system, used for trillions of dollars worth of transactions across the world, was announced Saturday. This agreement includes measures to prevent the Russian central bank from deploying its international reserves to undermine sanctions. So a quote from the CEO of the organization: political leaders made the right decision to cut off selected Russian banks from SWIFT, as they did in 2012 when they cut off Iranian banks off SWIFT. We are comparing Russia to Iran, which is insane. The U.S. Treasury Department created a classified program to tap SWIFT data to track the flow of terrorist financing after the September 11th attacks. Now, going a little bit into Palantir, we don't know if Palantir is working with SWIFT, but when I hear something like SWIFT data to track the flow of terrorist financing, and then I put two and two together, and I'm like, okay, Palantir does counterterrorism operations, it's a really interesting thing. I'm not saying Palantir is working with the SWIFT program, but it's like, that's where, in this environment, you kind of see Palantir's price mattering, or Palantir's price not getting destroyed, because if data analytics is sort of the basis for stopping terrorist financing and instituting an entire new era of how Russia gets financed, because it's excluded from the SWIFT banking system, you can see how something like Palantir is definitely very useful in that situation. By the way, Palantir price update, $11.61. We're doing pretty well on the day. The entire market is doing pretty well. Nothing is crazy tanking. Ethereum's up. Bitcoin is almost at 40,000. We'll look at the charts on that in a second. So not too bad. The move is aimed at Russian banks that have already been sanctioned from the international community, but can be expanded to other Russian financial institutions if necessary. One official said the White House is looking at exemptions for transactions, including the energy sector. So as we can see, the money trail right here, the Russia's dollar reserves likely shifted to swaps after it dumped treasuries. As a result of that, we saw how that ended up declining. So ultimately, the last thing I wanted to read off this was a little bit more at the end. The central bank blow. The decision to hit the central bank is the first for an economy the size of Russia's. And that's the key takeaway here. Russia is the first economy and their central bank that is worth many trillions of dollars to actually be hit by this decision. The U.S. has previously sanctioned central banks of adversaries such as Iran and Venezuela for funneling money that supported destabilizing activities in the regions. North Korea's central bank is also blacklisted right now. That's pretty bad for Russia. And that's the question. This is why, again, I don't think markets are reacting to this as harshly as they are. Because it's Russia's economy that's getting hit by this. Russia's financial institutions, Russia's central bank, Russia's people, Russia's currency is going to be inflated. But the rest of the world is going to be pretty fine. There's a lot of other worlds that interact with each other. I mean, now Russia has oils and commodities and all the stuff that they export. The strategic geopolitical move here is Russia is not going to let its people starve to death. Theoretically, I know Tom Nash disagrees with that. He thinks that would let them happen. We'll see if that happens. But if you don't believe that Russia's going to let their own people starve to death, then as a result of that, because they're not going to be able to starve to death, Putin is going to have to get out of Ukraine. And by the way, when Putin gets out of Ukraine this time, it's going to be different. Because if he gets out of Ukraine, now he has an entirely different situation on his hands. What is the different situation on his hands? The different situation is the entire world saw that you tried to do something, you weren't able to do it. The entire world was able to sanction your banks, cripple your financial institutions. Now you've got to capitulate. And this is where Putin either goes blue pill or red pill. Either he nukes because he's like, I hate you guys. I'm just going to have an anger fit right now. I'm just going to like destroy everything, which hopefully doesn't happen because the entire world goes kaboom at that point. Or he actually capitulates to what people say. And what people say is, hey, you need to get your act together and not do this horrible stuff anymore. And that's the question of what all this stuff is going to be happening. All right, let's read some comments and then we'll end off a couple of other things. Cameron Vincent, will Amit's channel reach 100k subs before Palantir $100? Which was I hope for all of us it is the Palantir stock price before my channel, even though it would be cool for my channel to get there. Palantir is in its dump phase. Yeah, you know, you're not wrong. Chris Patel, joke of the day. I-ran. Yeah. I-ran. Iran was ran. That's why that ended up happening to Russia. And Russia will be Russian. I know so many people have made that joke. I shouldn't have even made that joke. So I'm not even going to finish that joke because that joke is not the best. Mark the Golf Addict. I'm selling puts off Palantir. Easy money. I'm going to be doing a video soon on what it means to sell cash covered puts and how you can make money from that. I'm not doing that. I'm not that big into options. I'm learning a lot more about options, but I think I have the ability to at least explain it well, even though I'm not doing it. And we'll do a video sort of covering what that actually means. Going short is just not moral by any means. I don't think that's necessarily the case, Juan. Going short is not necessarily that it's about being moral or not immoral. It's more so a question of just like, are you seeing an opportunity in the market that you can take advantage of? Now, if you're talking about what I said before about like Bill Ackman going short the market, if that's what your comment is for, then yes, that is absolutely not moral as well. Midwest Cannabis says both is high. We're going to get to 100K and $100 at the same time. So there we go. All right, let's look at the last couple of charts and then we are going to end this out. So let's switch back. Let's open this up. Is it working? Yes, it is working. Okay, perfect. Let's look at ETH right now. So first of all, put in the chat if you have ETH. I'm curious. So full disclosure, I had about, I don't know, I had $4,000 worth of ETH or something. I got it around 2,700. Really at this price. I started buying it in September. And the problem was it ran up to like 4,500. I didn't sell. I was up 3,000. I was like, well, it could run up to 10,000. And then it crashed. And then at 3,500, I just saw ETH like getting destroyed. And I was like, I have a $700 profit. I'm going to take these $700. I am fully out of my Ethereum. Look, the way I think of crypto, and I don't talk about crypto too much on the channel because I'm just not that deeply into it, but we can make more content around it, is I don't see cryptocurrencies as a hedge or performing differently outside of being more volatile than growth stocks. And because I don't see that, where does my conviction lie? Does it lie in crypto or does it lie in growth stocks? And at this point, it's just more in growth stocks. I do think, though, this is a ridiculous price at $2,700 for Ethereum. If you believe in the bull case for Ethereum. If you believe that Ethereum is going to be one of the networks that most crypto companies use their processing databases on top of, then $2,700 is a ridiculous price. But it can go lower because Ethereum is so volatile. Same thing with Bitcoin as well. Windbreaker says, hey, are these live streams now daily at Market Open? Germany now has 100 billion special force for the military. Someone tell Carp and Thiel. Yes, so yes, these live streams are daily, 9:15 every morning, Monday through Friday. And yes, we talked about that. I'll do a video probably on this later, but there is a very good chance Palantir is getting some of that $100 billion, given they just spoke in Munich. And guys, I don't know if you watched that whole hour-long interview. I watched it yesterday. There was a question this reporter asked against Carp, and he was basically like, Palantir is a surveillance state capitalist company. How do you guys defend that? And he said it in the most snarkiest way, and Carp's response was pretty phenomenal. I did an analysis of that, so you guys will see that later. But interesting stuff. All right, so Ethereum. As we can see, Ethereum got to about 2744 right now. So the lows on Ethereum were 2,600, and if we get a little bit lower, we get to, we're basically at 20. Let's look at the interval. Let's do 1 year. The lowest we got this year was about 2,180. And this was on January 23rd, 2022. This is when the market was really hitting it, right? Now we got higher. We ran up to 3,400, 3,600, and now we're back down to around 2,700 right now. If we look at Bitcoin is the one that's interesting to me, guys, because Bitcoin just like, first of all, we need to do this every time. We got to look at this. Look at this all-time high. My God. Also, put in the chat if you have Bitcoin as well. A lot of you are saying you have ETH. Zach Wolf, yay daily. Yes, we're going for this. Let's do a daily. ETH. Okay, so a lot of you have ETH. Put in the if you have Bitcoin. $69,047. My goodness. If you had bought Bitcoin in 2010 for $300, goodness gracious, $69,000. Now we're at about $39,000. So you're still up on ETH if you bought it like a year ago. but most people did not buy it a year ago, right? So as we can see from here, it's just a pure downtrend. Now we got a recovery here. We started January 2022. We got to lows of about 32,000. And then 32,000 seemed to be resistant. The last time we hit 29,000, it was a while back, right? Yeah, look at this. It was January 24th, 2021. This was the summer crypto crash. So, sorry, not January. July 29th or June 26th, we got to the 29,000. Now, we're stuck here at around 39,000. So the question becomes, specifically on crypto, is like, are we going to be able to break 40, or is this going to be going back? As you see, we have a red candle forming right here. We haven't broke 40. Really, since we haven't broke 40 in months. When's the last time we hit 40? 40 was a while back, or 40 was a couple of days ago, but it got 40 and then it immediately bounced back. So we hit 40 and then it just bounced back. It hasn't been able to break $40,304. A lot of people are saying 0.58 of Bitcoin 69,420. Yes, Bitcoin. So the reason I'm bringing this up, and I'll finish off my thoughts here and then we'll move on. The question around cryptocurrencies is this the best investment you can make right now over something like growth stocks? And the way I'm interpreting it is that cryptocurrencies are performing in the exact same way that the NASDAQ and growth stocks are performing. Why is this the case? Well, the reason this is the case is because the same people that bought crypto and that bought like cryptocurrencies and altcoins are the same people that are in growth stocks and the NASDAQ stocks, right? So those people and those institutions are selling off just like they're selling off crypto. There's not an inverse relationship of growth stocks going down and the market crashing them because of inflation. Inflation means more interest rates. More interest rates means the cost of borrowing capital is harder. The cost of borrowing capital is worse for growth stocks because growth stocks are not profitable. They're valued on the profits they make in the future, which means if it costs more money to make those profits in the future because interest rates and the cost of borrowing the money that it takes to get that money to get market share right now is more, valuations get compressed. And if valuations get compressed, the question becomes, do cryptocurrencies that don't have to worry about valuations go up, seen almost as a hedge, as a counter inverse to interest rates and inflation, which it should be, because the whole point of cryptocurrency is that it's deflationary. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. Does that relationship happen? As of now, in the worst inflation crisis we have seen since 2008, and Bitcoin started in 2008, that is not true. It is not true. Cryptocurrency is not performing the way we want it to perform. So at that point, I don't think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is necessarily the best play right now. Now, it is a good long-term play. Yes, I think Bitcoin might be $100,000 in the next 5-6 years. Just when we get into a bull market. I mean, guys, when we get into a bull market, like this stuff is going to run. The reason it's going to run, and maybe it only runs for a limited amount of time and you can make some money there, but we've seen what happens when things run in a bull market. And now with the crazy amount of liquidity that we have in the world, that's just different than it was in 2013. I think the bull market will be phenomenal for crypto. The question becomes, when are we going to get that bull market? And it's hard to determine, when that bull market actually comes. Having problems beating the MAs at 40K. Yes, it is very hard beating the moving averages with the 40K. Cameron Vincent, I can put Palantir in my TFSA and no tax and can't really do that with crypto. Very true. In a word, what you are describing is the asset risk curve. Yes, thank you, Justin. That is exactly what I'm describing. The asset risk curve that determines the prices of these things. Recession will be the real test for Bitcoin. Haven't had one since its creation. That's a great point, James. Recession. Like, we have not had a recession. March 2020 was not a recession. COVID was not a recession. It was like 3 days, and then Tesla went from 300 to 5,000. Literally, and I sold my stupid Tesla stock before it happened, which was absolutely insane. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a real test if we have a recession. And here's the thing about a recession. This is why it's such a good point, James. When a recession happens, and I haven't experienced a recession as an adult yet, so I don't know how bad it will be, but it's not going to be good. Disposable income goes away. And if disposable income goes away, you talk about people not only selling off stocks, right, because they have to save their money, because why would you put your money in something that's tanking? That's the whole nature of selling off stuff during a recession. Why would you put your money in something as volatile as crypto? I mean, you don't know how crypto is going to go. So if crypto is just going to get decimated, and why is it going to get decimated? Because it is the most speculative thing in the world. And again, I'm not bearish against crypto. This is just sort of describing what happens during a recession. Then you can see cryptocurrencies tank very hard. I mean, I have zero faith that cryptocurrencies will actually be able to survive in a bear market, just given they're not performing from an asset risk curve inverse perspective than anything else. 5 to 6 years to 100K. If people decide they don't want Bitcoin anymore, there's nothing to support it. Yeah, and that's the fundamental flaw of the idea. Like, if people don't want Bitcoin anymore, then there's ultimately nothing to support it. And if there's nothing to support it, then it's ultimately going to be bad long term. Okay, last couple things I wanted to do. So first of all, I wanted to do a quick thing on Twitter. I wanted to show you guys this account right here. Let's switch the screen. The Kyiv Independent. The Kyiv Independent. So the Kyiv Independent, this is a startup. I found the story yesterday. This is a startup that had 20,000 followers last week. It's a media startup in Kyiv, and they're covering what's going on right now. And they now have 1.3 million followers. If anyone is on Twitter, I suggest following them simply because there's a lot of updates that are going on right now, right? So let's read some of the most latest updates. They're doing an amazing job covering what's going on. They deserve the following that they're getting right now because, when something is getting hurt right now, and the whole world has your attention and you're able to provide value on it, it's important. JP Morgan, Russian economy to shrink by 5th in the second quarter. This is what I mentioned at the top of the live stream, that the sanctions are really going to hurt Russia. Throughout the whole year, the decline will be about 3.5% with inflation rising to 10% or even higher, JP Morgan forecasted. London traded shares of Russia's largest state-owned bank, Siberia Bank, dropped by 68%. That is insane. 68%. The decline was the result of severe economic sanctions imposed against the aggressor state and the payment order from SWIFT. We talked about that. The National Bank of Ukraine receives $1 billion, $33 million in support for armed forces. Not $1 billion, $1 billion in a different currency, $33 million. Earlier, the bank had opened a special account where the Ukrainians and foreigners donated money. Oil depots burn after artillery shelling in the Sumy oil blast. Lots of good stuff. Let's look at this one. Ukrainian defenders of Zimneviv Island in Black Sea, presumed dead in a Russian bombardment, are alive and held captive, according to the Ukrainian Navy. The 13 border guards become celebrated when they told a Russian warship to go F yourself after being ordered to surrender. Man, the stuff that's going on in Ukraine is amazing. So this, I would definitely recommend following this account. Definitely a lot of good updates happening here. Okay, we're ending up to the live stream. We're at 10:15. This live stream is about to end right now. I'm going to finish it off by looking at a couple of charts that I was interested in. Just for like another 5 minutes, I'll read some final comments. And then we will conclude the first ever live stream of my life. So here we go. I want to go to Open Door. I don't know how many of you are in this stock, but my goodness, Open Door has been described to me as basically the next Zillow without all the problems of Zillow, because they get to buy houses cheap and they get to sell those houses. And even if they don't buy them cheap, they make money in the spread of selling and buying the house, kind of like being a market maker for houses. Now, market makers in the stock world they make money off the ask and bid of a trade. So when someone buys a stock, someone has to sell a stock. There is a process that happens during that ask and that bid for that stock. And in between that, I know a friend, one of my friends works as a market maker. They get paid very well. I think he's making like $200,000 a year. A percentage of a cent that you make in between that trade, multiplied by like 1,000 every minute, is how these institutions make their money. So in the context of Open Door, I mean, look at this stock. This stock was trading at around, let's look at the 5-day. So this stock was trading at $10.89. It was already down from $23 all time. So it's like, it was pretty bad, right? After earnings, I did not expect them to drop 30%. $8. I mean, you thought Palantir had a bad earnings. We went from 13 to like 11. We got to like 10 when it was bad, but now we're kind of stabilizing at 11. Open Door is under $10. I mean, and I'm not in this stock yet, but I'm looking at it heavily because people are describing it as like a really, really good, at least 3-4x play over the next 2 years. I'm just scared of buying homes and selling it after what I saw with Zillow. And I don't know enough about Open Door, but I follow some people on Twitter who are really big on it to understand about it. So if anyone's in this stock, I mean, I would love your thoughts on this stock because this stock is pretty interesting. And we've seen a massive decline on that. The next stock, the last stock I want to sort of just look at. And by the way, guys, as we have market opens, please put your stocks in the chat, and we are going to go through those chart analyses as you put those stocks over the next coming days. Is Roku? Why do I want to talk about Roku? Because Cathie Wood seems to have sold all of her Palantir for this one stock right over here. Roku has been getting decimated. Let's look at the 5-year on Roku. This is insane, guys. Roku, in 2017, when I was in college, $21. I wish to God I knew what a Roku was in 2017, because I would have bought it. And, even if just on the thought of it would seem cool, if I understood a little bit about streaming and the TV market, and I could have made out at $490 in 3 years from $17. I mean, talk about one of the most amazing growth stocks in the past 3 years. The Roku's moat seems to be advertising. I listened to the CEO talk about it. That is their moat. It is that simple. They will make money off advertising. They will be the operating system for TVs. They will be the way you get access to Netflix, and they're going to make a lot of money in the exchange of that. I don't know if that moat is the biggest moat in the world. As a result of me not believing in that moat as much as I necessarily need to believe in, I don't think I'm buying this stock at $122. Because if you look at it from a baseline level, 122 going down from 490, you talk about deep value. This is deep effing value if you believe in the moat of Roku. Now, Roku's been doing well over the past day as well. If you look at the past, the past 5 days, you can see Roku going down from a low of around 107, rallied all the way up to 140. Now, if Cathie Wood started buying around this time, 107, which not fully, I think a little bit around here, but more so at 120, then she would have made some money on this with the Palantir money. And I think that's ultimately the reason she sold. The more research I've dug into it, because I really tried to understand it, I think she sold it to buy the dip. I think if Palantir goes lower, if Palantir shows some growth potential, she'll be back into Palantir. But this is a stock I've been interested in only, not because I want to invest in them, not because of the moat, only because it seems like it's the major play for Cathie. And like, when you're just analyzing the market in general, this stock seems to be the stock that she's, this and T-Doc. Like, these two are the big plays. And the question is, if these two do not perform at the highest of levels over the next 3-4 years, because by the way, a lot of her investments were at the $300, $400 range. So like, she's averaged down quite a bit, but I mean, goodness, like it's not to the point where her average is less than $140, which is what Roku's at right now. She's got to make money on these two. If she does not make money on Teladoc and Roku, she will go down as one of the worst fund managers of all time. It's that simple. And the only reason I'm saying that is because she has to make money on the biggest conviction plays like she made on Tesla. So it's just interesting for me to look at Roku and try to be able to analyze Roku at scale. Okay, last thing, Bitcoin just hit $40,000. Wow, here we go. Bitcoin. 515. Now let's see if we can break this 40, get to 41. If Bitcoin is going up, the entire market likely is going to start following it because they've been not inversely related. So I think it's always important to just see how Bitcoin is going up and how that's happening. Let's look finally back at the watch list before we end this off. Not too bad. It's not that crazy. There's some red in the market, but it's not bad. Robin at $11. United Airlines, my sister has a heavy position in this because she bought this during the COVID pandemic. $43. That's at least a $60, $70 stock, I think, in the next 2 years. Once people start flying. DraftKings, that's interesting stock by Cathie, $22. Block Square had a great earnings, $123. Nike, $136. PayPal, oh my goodness. We're going to have to talk about PayPal another day. PayPal is getting decimated. Same thing with SoFi. I know a lot of you have been asking about my opinion on SoFi. I'm trying to get a better opinion on it. But we will talk about that soon. All right, last thing, I will read some comments, then we're going to end this off. 243 people on the stream. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you guys. 243 people watching the first live stream. It means the entire world. One day, there might be 2,430 people. It means a lot, guys. I think we're trying to go for this. I know the camera quality is crappy right now because the good quality camera, like, I think we've had some decent stream, even though we've had some technical difficulties. We'll figure out this camera issue to make sure this stuff doesn't happen. So thank you for putting up with me, and hopefully I get to see you guys every day. Final thing, some comments. Amit, look at Sens. I've heard of Senseonics. I heard they got some, they just tanked even though they had good news on the FDA stuff, so I'll definitely look into that. Willem says, not a fan of Roku and T-Doc. Yes, well, I mean, they're getting decimated, so I can understand why you're not a fan of that. RM, Russia should use Shiba Inu. Doesn't Shiba Inu sound like a Russian name? Like, imagine if Vladimir just comes out tomorrow, it's like, Shiba Inu is our official currency now. That would be interesting. Six shirt, thank you, Namir. Support, good job. Thank you guys for all the love. Airlines have huge debt. A lot won't survive. That's true. I think United will survive, but a lot won't. How is Bitcoin up 7% when stocks are not? I thought it was correlated. Well, I mean, Bitcoin is more volatile. So like the S&P is not tanking, and that's okay. So that's kind of correlated with Bitcoin, but the S&P is not going to go up 7% just because Bitcoin goes up 7%. The S&P might go up like 0.1%, because 7% to Bitcoin. It's like Interstellar. Have you guys seen Interstellar? Interstellar is one of the top 3 greatest movies of all time. Interstellar, Inception, and The Dark Knight are the top 3 movies of all time. And in Interstellar, when they went to that scene on the Earth, when they were like 1 hour is like 7 years of Earth time, and they were on that planet for like 2 or like about 4 or 5 hours, so they wasted like 40 years or something of Earth life. Like that scene blew my mind. I thought, wow, what a crazy concept. So 7% of Bitcoin is like 0.1% of the S&P 500. Now I said I said Inception, Dark Knight, and Interstellar. Obviously a big Christopher Nolan fan, but Wolf of Wall Street is up there.
I mean, I struggle which one to take out because those three are legit. But Wolf of Wall Street is up there. And given the stock guy that I am, I don't know which one to take out. If I had to pick, it might be Interstellar for Wolf of Wall Street because the Dark Knight is... But it might have to take out Dark Knight because Interstellar, to me, is more philosophical than the Dark Knight. Even the Dark Knight is very philosophical. Just say Nolan is the top director. LOL. Yeah, Nolan is it. He's it. All right, guys, we're done. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. I will see you guys tomorrow at 9:15 a.m. covering the market open. See you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.